Guess what's back? Back again.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Bear from SpikyBits.com, and today we're going to take a look at the Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol box set for the Sisters of Battle, or the Adepta Sororitas. This kit, well, we've seen it before because this part, all of these right here, were the Army box back in 2019, and then the Rhino was a separate release in February of 2020. And I didn't realize until I went back and I was watching my old videos, because we're going to kick it back to Rob of 2019. To do the actual unboxing, because nothing's changed here and we've done all the work already, right? We're just going to reuse some footage, but more on that here in a second. The Rhino was actually $70 back then, and now it's $60 on GW's website. So who says GW doesn't ever lower prices, right? They did. It went down to $60. I thought 70 was a little high at the time, and I talked about it in the video, and you're about to see the footage from that. So just to clear up any confusion, it was $70 and now it's $60. So it's kind of an interesting little antidote going into this feature here. Now, I did want to mention something real quick. When I took the wrapper off, I didn't realize this was a sticker. So there apparently was a snafu where there's not 27 miniatures in here, there's 26, and they had to, after they got everything shrink wrapped and in the warehouse, they had to slap a sticker on all these. So I lost a little bit of labor right there, but they got it done and they got it all good to go. Now this is a $140 release this week. The Sisters of Battle Army box, I actually forget how much it was, but I believe it was $150, but I'm gonna go look that up right now as we jump over into the values. So I went back and looked, and the Sisters of Battle Army box from 2019 was $210, and it was allocated 8 per store. So they actually allocated stuff before all the COVID stuff started happening, which kind of, when you look at things like the Beastnaga box being capped at 5, and then the new Hexfire box being capped at, Beastnagas was 4, Hexfire is 5, it kind of, it doesn't seem like that bad in, the COVID era to be allocated down to 5 when this box right here was allocated at 8. But that's just my 2 cents right there. It's just another interesting anecdote about Games Workshop release cycle. So $210, and all they did was substitute out the book and the card pack. So the card packs go for about $25 right now, and the codexes go for $50 now, but in 2019 it was the last edition, and they were $40 before they put the digital code in there and jacked up the price $10. So that's kind of interesting, because this set is $140. It comes with a $60 Rhino. So it's very comparable value-wise or retail price-wise to the Army box that had the codex, that had the card set in there, the data card set. So it almost seems like Games Workshop put it at an extra $70. It just does, price-wise, it doesn't make sense in GW money, because you're getting the same, around the same value worth of stuff. It's just basically substituted out for a $60 thing instead of a $40 thing and a $25 thing. So I don't get why it was $210 looking back at it when this is $140. It almost seems like there was like an early access fee to the rules, because remember, they came out 2 months ahead of time. But I'm not trying to salt the seas anymore. I'm just trying to give you my opinion, and just, so everybody can spend their hobby dollars a little bit smarter going into the future, because there is that early access paywall price valuation, I guess you could say, on a lot of the stuff they do, especially like, next week we know the Hexfire box is coming out. We know there's 2 new characters, one for T-Sons, one for Grey Knights, and then eventually they will come out by themselves, and they'll probably be $35, but you'll have to wait, right? So it's like, vote with your hobby dollars. If you need it now, get it now. That's cool. If you want to wait and pick it up $35 down the road, or pick it up off of eBay and not spend, $200 some on the boxes, hey, that's smart too. It's all about voting with your hobby dollars and getting more for your money, and not being told, don't boycott this and don't do that. That's all very, very silly. So anyways, back to the matter at hand. $140 for this Combat Patrol. Now, here's the valuations on it. So the Cannon S, we know, is $35. It's a push fit one. It was originally given out for freezies at a Warhammer 40k big GT event earlier in that year. I don't think this one is sold separately. It's not the standard multi-part kit. The Sister Squad, it's in here at $60, but again, that's the push fit one, which I think is just as dynamic as the other one, as I'm about to show you in the video from 2019. Repentia Squad, it's basically a half squad, right? So it is push fit. They are pretty cool looking. They will, if you've already bought a box of Repentia that's multi-part, these guys will look pretty cool in it because they're a little bit different poses and things like that. Pen and Engine, again, it's, you know, they sell a box of 2 for $60, but there always seems to be a little bit of tax, you know, when it comes to Space Marines. Space Marines are, or Primaris are, $60 for 10, but you can buy them for 5 at some points. They do the combat patrol thing, and they value that at 35. So that's what we put the Pen and Engine at as well. It's kind of a mono pose. It's ETB. There's not a lot of options on it, but it will look different if you have, you know, a box of the other ones too. So just keep that in mind. Arcoflagelant's a little bit of weird fit in here because, you know, you get 3. There's squads not in 3. So you get, that's actually a typo. So it's $50 for 10. And I don't know, this one's just a weird fit in here. So we priced it at what it is. GW generally values 3 figures. Remember, they did the 3-figure the 3-figure Reavers, the 3-figure Primaris. They did a 5 box of the Poxwalkers for $15. So $15 usually seems about the very minimum price that 3 to 5 models will be from Games Workshop. So Arcoflagelants are basically bigger, but they're on a smaller base. The Rhino is $60 now. Again, it was $70 in the past. I don't know what happened. Seraphim Squad is $55. These aren't quite as dynamic as the multi-parts, and they don't have all the options for them, but they're still pretty cool miniatures, and I like them just the same. I'm going to compare them to the other ones that came out as well. So we got a lot going on here. We got a lot to look at. There is a solid value in this box, especially now that it's only $140 and not $210, right? And you don't get stuck with a codex that's already out of date and some cards that are already out of date. And I feel like compared to the Army box, this is a solid value. And I almost in the back of my head, I'm like, why the heck was the Army box $210? And to me, again, it only seems like, you know, it was an early access fee almost, or early access valuation tax on the box set there. But that being said, let's kick it back to the Rob of the past to break down this box and also the Rhino, which we unboxed and built too. It's a pretty neat kit, and I compared it to the Demos pattern Rhino, which probably isn't even available anymore on Forge World. Who knows what's going on with Forge World right now? So let's get to it. Potato in my book. So taking a look at the instruction manual, there's some interesting takeaways in here, of course. Now you can see there is sprue A, sprue B. Sprue B is the same sprue, just twice, which is half the size of sprue A. So this is your normal small box set. This is kind of like your large kit size sprue. And then you've got the little character Cannon S size sprue right here. There's 4 different sets of bases, 150 mil that the Penitent engine is going to come on. 1732s, 428s, and 325s, but you can't guess what these go to. Okay, fine, I'll tell you. This goes to the Arcoflagelants, and these go to the Sister Repentia, and everything else gets a 32. So I skipped over the decal sheet, please forgive me, but here you can see what the assembled miniatures are going to look like if you haven't already seen them a million times. But let's talk about the instructions right here. So we've seen this before. I've actually already showed this assembled, and we'll show it to you here again. But then we start getting into the nitty-gritty of the rest of the sets here, and you're going to see that it's just basically front and right halves in a lot of cases, with a random arm pointed in a different direction, a backpack, and some sort of head option. Which kind of definitely makes sense. And then once you start getting into the whole squads, you'll see things like this, where you've got the Battle Sister squad, which is 10 models, right? And the 10 models actually consist of the Sister Superior, the Sermaculum, or the Magnifier, or whatever it's called. And then you're going to get one normal pose that isn't duplicated, with the Flamer one here, and then you're going to get some duplicate poses. So they kind of, you know, give you these, but they're going to be a little bit different because you do the head swap on them. And some of them are just front and right halves with a bolter. Some of them are going to have extra arms and things, but not really for the Battle Sisters right there. And then boom, you get the set together. Same deal with the Seraphim, as you can see right here. This is going to be from the sprue A, so it's not going to be duplicated. And it's got the power weapon. And then you're going to get 2 that are duplicated that are only different by the helmets. Then there's 3 different stem types, so you can have them at the different heights and kind of, you know, make them a little bit more dynamic and cool looking. As far as the Repentias go, they actually have some pretty decent options. So only one of them is duplicated with a different head style. 2 are straight up the only pose, and then the Superior, Repentia Superior right here is going to be a little bit bigger of a model because of course she's in the armor, but she's going to be a little bit more dynamic, so she's going to have some different arm swaps and things. I could see where the different arms left and right kind of halves just up here in the middle of nowhere might be a little difficult to glue together. And I'll tell you this already, I know there's an error on the sprue. So this piece right here that is 76 and this piece right here that is 79, these are actually both marked 79. So well, if you're looking for an arm, it's going to be marked 79, and if you're looking for a head, it's also going to be marked 79. So don't think you're crazy, the sprue's just wrong. Moving on, then we got the Arcoflagellants. Again, 1 unique pose right here, and 2 are going to be duplicated. Not a super big deal. It totally makes sense. Keeps costs down, yada yada. The Penitent Engine, this looks very dynamic. I've never seen like, hey, you put this thing together and then you kind of lock it in and then flip it up and glue it on. That's kind of cool. All right, I can dig it, but it looks like there's a lot of joints and little assemblies here that are just going to kind of lock it into position. So you're not going to have a whole lot of you know, options as far as that goes. But we know that the Penitent Engine that's coming out has at least 3 different options. I think 1 even has flails on it, so you'll be able to kind of mix it up, and there might actually be 4 different versions if you count this one and this pose right here. Nothing looks too crazy on these sprues, just kind of eyeballing it. So, and let's take a look at the sprues themselves, and I can show you where that error is. So here is the Canon S that comes in the box, and I've already showed you this back in September, I believe it was. It's kind of, it's a very easy to put together, but there's sandwiches. So you sandwich on her cape and then her backpack and things like that, and there's going to be a little bit of a mold line, so you're going to want to use some super thin glue. I actually prefer, and I used it on all these models right here, the Tamiya extra thin cement. But if you have a problem with gaps, you can always use the Vallejo plastic putty as well. And I'll put links in the comments below to both of those products right there, so you can check them out. So here she is, very well detailed. I mean, the face is kind of Emperor Palpatine, just a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it's very well detailed and very dynamic as far as, you know, all of the different features and things right there. And then we got Sister Superior Novena. Now, she was the Warhammer Day exclusive, I think, back in June, and we put her together and got her on a really sweet base right here. So she is also a multi-part kit. This is available separately. It doesn't come in this box, but I just want to show you the 2 multi-part kits from this year as far as the sisters go. And now we're going to compare them to the existing miniatures that are coming in this box. So here is the other Sister Superior. And you can see she's deceptively dynamic. You can definitely see where everything kind of clasps together right there. I didn't quite use enough glue to kind of cover that up. It's easy to do. I was just in a little bit of a hurry, and you can see I left the mold lines on. So you can definitely have an idea of where everything is and where you're going to snip it off the sprue. The barrels are not drilled out, so maybe with the multi-part kits that will be the case. But they have a deceptive dynamic kind of feel to the models. Now, where there's some very obvious areas of like no detail or little to none detail, it's still a very dynamic model. So take that, you know, how you want right there. She's got all her war gear and everything like that. It is what it is. It's just not this miniature that was $35. Like, they're literally different material. I mean, you can see it in this right here, which makes sense. As far as the Seraphim go, well, we assembled one of the double poses right there. So there's going to be another one that has a helmeted head, and I think it points this way. But you can see you're going to have to drill out your barrels, and you can definitely see where the mold lines are right there. They tried to hide them as best they could, but at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do, and you will have to do a little bit of scraping across the leading edge of the backpack, and make sure you use enough of the smaller, thinner plastic glue right there to kind of fill in the shoulders right there, because otherwise you're going to see that big gap. But again, deceptive, dynamic posing and then this one doesn't have quite as much visible detail. That's kind of just plain, because her legs are kind of folded back and such like that. So very, very cool. And then this is actually the one model that this little flight stand actually glues to and doesn't seem to have a hard time attaching to it right there. But I would imagine it'd probably be better to use magnets at that point. And then here's the battle standard. So again, this model, you can see this. You can see the mold lines. You can see everything there. That's why we left them, just to show you. So going all up and down, the banner right there. Oh, I forgot a backpack. Whoops. I don't even know where that went. But anyways, moving on. Lots of detail to blend with the robe right here, and you can see where the split is as well. So just be careful of all of that. And then we also assembled one of the sisters Repentia, which looks a lot more dynamic and seems to have a little bit more going on detail wise, kind of a cross between a Death Cult assassin and the sister, redeeming themselves, just kind of running in with no armor. The back leg kind of fell off a little bit right there. There was a lot of flash to kind of trim down up in there, so just be really careful when you're using this glue that you catch, something like that, because that's just a clean kind of break that, well, not really a break, I just messed up right there. But other than that, it's very dynamic and very, very cool looking. But you can do a lot of like cross hatching and things up here. But again, it's not as detailed as what we saw with the two individual sisters that came out. Now, the Arcoflagellants are on a 25 mil base, and these actually are on a 20 mil base. And if you want to play a really fun shell game, you can take all three of the bases, and they will all go inside of each other. The 28 millimeter base will fit in the 32, and the 25 will fit in the 28, and that's how you can sometimes, hopefully, keep them apart in your mind when you see them. Like, oh my gosh, I can't tell anymore what's the small base, what's the big base. But this Arcoflagellant is actually very deceptively I don't know what's going on with it. Like, you can switch out the head, and that's really cool, and it's got this different arm right here, as the other ones just kind of have more of the whip. But there's a lot going on with this model, and I think they are a little bit smaller, but they seem to be definitely jam-packed with detail right there. And last but certainly not least is the Penitent engine itself. This model, well, it goes together very well, but there's always a but, right? There's gonna be a lot of flash to trim down all around these areas of the legs, all around the arms. The flamer is actually kind of weird, and we've got our first cat hair of the day. Then across the flamethrowers here, because this is a separate piece. Now, I did notice that I broke off this little end right here. I didn't really hit it very hard at all, so be careful. This will catch some force and snap right off this little awning, kind of at the end of the rail right there. But not much posing capabilities or anything like that. And this is going to look a little kind of weird. You saw in the instructions where you kind of like lock the front into this, and then you put this front cowl over it, and it doesn't line up at first, but when you put the cowl over it, it lines up and it makes more sense. And I guess these are just like a little injection, like combat drugs or something, that somebody stands back here and just kind of pushes them in and freaks this little dude out, and he starts running at people. I don't know how it all works. I'm not a Penitent engine-ologist, but on a 50 mil base, it's definitely an interesting kit. Here's how it sizes up to a Primaris. So kind of to be expected, but not exactly. I don't know. I don't expect this to be a $60 kit. We originally priced it at $60. I think that might be a little high. There's the standard, so obviously the ladies are a little bit smaller than a Primaris Marine, even in their power armor. But then with something like Poxbringer, Poxbringer is a little bit bigger on his resin base right there. And then you've got the normal lady, as you would expect. She is also about, smaller, with power armor and things like that. As far as guardsmen go, well, they're pretty much ish the same size, which is, so a sister in armor is about the same size as a Kriegsman, which is probably going to be a little bit smaller than somebody like a Acadian or something like that, because the plastics tend to run a little bit bigger. And then the Primaris Marine, well, that definitely makes sense right there. So overall, the design, I think, is, I didn't expect it to be as good as it is, but it doesn't, it's not going to hold
a lot of weight when you compare it next to the multi-part kits and the independent characters and things that came out earlier in the year, which is just to be expected because, I mean, let's face it, this is kind of a bundle deal. This was $35 just for the model itself. It would kind of make sense, but they're in no means crappy or anything like that. You know, I think they're just what you get, and they're going to be a little bit less quality-wise than the multi-part kits, and that's okay because, I mean, at the end of the day, you get it for a little bit of a deal, and I think everybody's okay with that. So they definitely have a very surprising amount of detail and a very deceptive, dynamic aspect to them that I think will be very appealing to a lot of folks once they crack it open and actually get building on the models right here. I think the price point overall is pretty decent. Like I said, I made the comparisons to Shadow Spear, and you know, as far as everything you get in here and having enough to get it on the table and get ready to start playing, I think that makes sense as well. So I would expect the codex that comes out in you know, January, February, March, I assume it's going to be February, to have more pictures of the units in there. But then again, at the end of the day, that black covered codex looks really neat, and it's very, very striking as well. So that is it for this one. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Overall, I think the miniatures are great. There's no real gotchas besides duplicate parts. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think a lot of folks are going to be very happy with this box set. But if you can wait, well, perhaps you want to wait for the multi-part kits and maybe get the stuff that's a little bit more dynamic and detailed that come out. But chances are they'll be a little bit harder to assemble, whereas these easy to build, not quite push peg or push foot models are, you know, at the end of the day, just a front and left, right half, maybe an arm here and there, a head, and a back panel. About this kit right here, that I just kind of want to briefly show you what comes in the box, and then we're going to kind of talk about other comparable items on the GW side of things out there. So you get the instruction booklet, you get this upgrade sprue, which is, you know, basically some hatches. There's a hunter killer on it. We'll look a little bit closer at this. Some little swooshy bits here, and some sister bits, and some little shrine parts for the back, some extra heads, a gunner, things like that. And then you get something that you've probably seen before, which is the Rhino chassis itself. So this is just the chassis. Now remember, the Rhino kit itself comes with an extra sprue, which is you know, has some guns. It also has a hunter killer missile. It has some hatches. Not for the tank, because those actually come on this, but the hatches for like the top here. And I think I'm probably forgetting something, but for the most part, I think that's about it. Oh, and there is a decal sheet here too. So that's what you get in this box for $70. And we're going to break it all down and build it and show you a little bit more here in a second. But let's look at some comparable products out there first, because this is, I think, where it's really interesting on this pricing side of things here. So our first stop is going to be Forge World's website, and they actually sell the Demos pattern, and none of this is for sale right now because everything's shut down because of the coronas, but they sell the Demos pattern Rhino kit, which is all a complete, well, actually no, it's an upgrade kit. Some of this is actually plastic still, which is kind of interesting to see. Now they don't show the components and such. Well, actually they do. It's with this right here. Yeah, so here you can see the resin bits and the plastic bits. So it's basically the kit I just showed you, the Rhino, plus some extra upgrade parts. So it's actually technically more than a Rhino, and it's $66. So it's less. Remember, less than $70 for the plastic one over here. So that's a really interesting price point to kind of see. Now, granted, the Sisters of Battle emulator is, and the Exorcist actually for that matter, is based off of this design, because you can see the round hatch and the smokestacks here are actually based off of the Mark I chassis. And in some regards, this front hatch right here a little bit is kind of inspired for this Rhino right here. But remember, this is part resin, part plastic kit that is available. And then the other thing to compare this to is the Razorback, the plastic Razorback, also available from Games Workshop's website, which is $45, which is just, I don't get why this is $45 personally. And the Sisters Rhino is $70. It's literally, what, $25 more for the Sisters kit. Now this comes with the same exact stuff, basically. So you get that half of the Rhino, this half of the Rhino, then you get the hatch upgrade sprue that I was talking about earlier. So that's what it comes in the standard Rhino kit, which actually is $40 US. And then you get the Razorback upgrade sprue, which gives you that weapon on the back right there. So for this kit, again, it's basically the same thing for $45. So kind of interesting on the pricing side of things right there. So now back to this kit here. Again, Rhino kit, we're not even going to talk about this. But one thing to note here, that this is still copyright 2006 when they redid the Rhino. I think they did this on the computer. They actually brought out the Rhino, I want to say 2002. It might have been 2001. But then they went ahead and redid the sprues when they came out with the Razorback kit, which came out a number of years later. So really the only new thing you're getting is this right here from this kit. But we're going to put that aside for right now and take a look at the build instructions for this. And those of you that have put Rhinos together in the past, you're not going to see anything different here. It's literally the same kit with the same sprues from 2006. This is what I built Rhinos for the past 15 or so years. The only thing that's different about this is that it does come with that Sister's Gunner here, which is basically a sandwich of front left or front back and a backpack right there. Sister Stormbolter bits, which you can assemble with the gunner, or closed right there with the little bits of the Stormbolter handle on it if you want. Hunter Killer missile over here, which you can mount on the side. Actually, no, they give you a mount for the turret right there, so that's kind of cool to see. And then you got specific smoke launchers as well. Little banner bits to go over the squared off section here, and little shrine bits and some swirly bits and different things to kind of make it your own. And here's the breakdown of all of that right here. So it's a lot of different parts to kind of put on there and really customize the way you want, which is cool. But I mean, in theory, all you're really getting are these blue parts here, that the hatches and things that really make it a air quotes kind of Sister's Rhino right there. So that's kind of where we're all at. Now, sprue wise, you can definitely see there's a lot going on with the sprue. It's your basic one single squad size sprue or two independent character size sprues, depending on, well, actually it'd be 4 independent character size sprues, but some of the kits nowadays are coming with 2 of these, like we've seen in the past. So your big hatches right there, your Hunter Killer, your Gunner, the little swirly things right here. So you might want to, if you're going to put those on, you want to be super careful with what you use to actually attach that glue-wise. I would recommend using this Tamiya thin cement right there so you don't get a bunch of mess behind it and kind of mess up the definition of things, because there's a bunch of those. That might be the only thing I actually use that on, except for the halves of the Stormbolter and stuff for the Sister's Gunner, depending on how you want to assemble that. But I mean, all this detail work and everything is nice and crisp, but this is literally the only parts you get new in this kit from 2020. So here's how it looks after you get the extra parts on there. So this is actually a Rhino that I've had for a number of years. Actually probably predates our videos here on YouTube. This was something that you may remember, the conversion I did a while ago, where it had a Rhino, actually has a Rhino driver in there based on the Rhino or the Predator artwork, where there's a little Hunter Killer missile. So I actually made it a little control panel and such for the guy to go in there. I used this on a bunch of videos, so I figured, what the hey, we just got some of the pieces off here, which you can tell is definitely a different colored plastic, because this is a little bit older plastic right here. From, like I said, around the 2000 aughts going into the 2000 teens. But overall, everything slots right in. It's literally the same Rhino kit right there. These hatches, you can definitely tell they're doing a lot more on the computers, obviously, these days, because the hatches have pretty much very little tolerance. They literally, I have not glued this in here at all, and you can see how they stick in. Now, both of the hatches have the same front and back, which is really interesting, because depending on how you want to do it, you can put this back. This is technically the back, which would look fine if you wanted to put that in there, but this being the back, actually looks like when you flip the turret or the ramp there, the hatch here down, if you really wanted to, it would almost look like they were kind of rolling out of it. But these literally stick in there with no glue, nothing whatsoever. So you can place them in, you can prime them, and then you can kind of paint them up separately. The front hatch doesn't stick on as well as I would like, but not everybody's going to be converting up the driver right there, so I feel like that's not even an issue. Size-wise and scale-wise, I feel like the Sister actually looks like she actually fits in here. So like 10 of those definitely look like they fit in here, whereas the Rhino, you're kind of like, I
don't know what's I don't know what's going on with that. It's kind of like in D&D where you can like make as many things as you want and kind of carry them around. I forget what they said that. It's like a very specific term. I'm not as much as a D&Dologist as I would like to say I am, but you kind of know what I mean right there. Like in a Transformers where, you know, one Transformer transforms and all his buddies can like jump inside of him and they fly away. That's kind of what was happening in 40K, but this actually looks to scale here, so I kind of like that. It's very it doesn't take anything away, and you kind of like, oh wait, that actually makes sense. All right, cool. Now this, we actually have that emulator that we showed you recently too. So let's compare those two. So here's the emulator, and like I said, the front hatches are pretty much the same, although the emulator itself is a little bit more ornate with it. All right, well that hatch is just that lady's just staying down there. But then when you turn it to the side, you can see more of the Demos Mark 1 Rhino styling right here with the round hatch and this kind of exposed exhaust with the brazers on top. And then over here, you just kind of got your regular old new and improved, no, very Spartan-ish Rhino right there. But I didn't put any of the swirlies or any of the extra bits on there. So it does take away from it a little bit when you compare it to something like this. But size-wise and detail-wise, if you put all those bits on there, I don't think it's going to take anything away. And it definitely beats buying one of these, because even if you get an emulator, or say you get an Exorcist or something like that, there's no option to just have it as an air quotes Rhino. So you'd have to do a little bit of converting somehow to kind of do all that, because this is engineered to be the Demos pattern from the ground up, which definitely means that maybe we'll see a Demos pattern Rhino in plastic here at some point if they start to kind of refocus on heresy, which we definitely like to see maybe in the near future. But that is not now. Now is this, and it's sisters and it's ornate, and we're pretty much out of sisters content at this point. I hope. So that was probably a very long video. I don't know, because I just went from the beginning to the end, and we're going to let Rob of 2019 fill in the middle. So thank you very much for watching this unbox and build of the Combat Patrol for the Sisters of Battle criteria circa 2019-2020 right there. So again, like I was saying in the beginning, I think this is a very good value if you're getting into Sisters or already have Sisters and you want to supplement you know, a lot of the different squads that already come in there. So I imagine this will be out for a while. You might be able to find them on the shelves. I don't feel like it's something that you have to kind of snap by and be worried about missing out on right now. So again, that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to give me the very first to like and comment on all our future videos.